whispering.
But I like how it sounds in my headphones.
It sounds so much better, doesn't it? Wouldn't it be great if everybody just whispered?
I'm going to start. What do you want?
No, I'll be quiet. I just want to listen.
All right, okay. Here, we're going to start.
Whispering is just like tiptoeing.
And I can't whisper. I need to yell at that little boy. Okay. All right, here. Let me go to my notes here. All right. Well, here you are. Okay.
I haven't memorized all my asks yet.
No, good. I don't want you to be too. I don't want you to be too prepared. Okay, here we go.
Okay, good. I wing it most of the time.
Good. I don't know any other way. Okay, here we go. Joining me today is the founder of No More Noise Toronto, Ingrid Buday. Welcome, Ingrid.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
Believe it or not, I'm going to do all that again because normally I do the intro, so I hit the record and then I hit the song. But I don't know if it was Jarvis coming down, but I just started talking to you and I never fucking hit record. So we're doing all of that again. I can't believe it because normally it's live. We just go. Okay, here we go. Joining me today is the founder of No More Noise Toronto, Ingrid Buday. Welcome, Ingrid.
Woo, woo, woo. Very happy to be here, Mike. Thanks.
Full disclosure, although we met for the first time moments ago, we've met like via Zoom.
Yes.
Or remotely at least.
That
because
online world.
We're connected via Esri Canada.
Yes.
And I produce podcasts for Esri, and there's one called Geographical Thinking. And you were on not once, I believe, but twice. Mm-hmm. Two different hosts. That's how far back we're going here. Mm-hmm. So I got to know your story at No More Noise Toronto because you were on Geographical Thinking, an Esri podcast. And it's about time you paid a visit to the basement. So I'm glad to have you here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And, you know, the support that we have for just creating a better and more livable Toronto where people can have a good night's sleep is just so incredible. It's more than I ever thought it would actually be. And to have the support of Esri Canada and using their cool mapping it's been a really fun connection.
So I was on your website and we're going to set the table. Who's Ingrid? What's No More Noise Toronto? What the heck are we talking about? You know, all this will be uncovered here. So stay tuned, everybody. But nomoreNoiseToronto.com. This is the website, and I can see mapping of noise in this city, and I think it says powered by Esri or something on the bottom. Like Esri is and again, this is not, Esri's not a sponsor, and they should be, but is it the Esri GIS? Like, is it their software that allows you to map the noises in the city?
Yeah, it actually all started with Esri and mapping. I grew up in Vancouver, I grew up in BC, and I could pore over topographical maps for hours. I just loved them. And then during the pandemic, I took an introductory GIS course, and that's when I learned Esri. And I learned that I could create a survey where people could input their information and they could see the result back to them. And I thought, that's powerful. That's what I want to do.
Okay, shout out to Esri.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mike Rogotsky, listening at home. Listening at home. I hope he's living at home and listening at home. We love Grigotsky on this podcast here. So, No More Noise Toronto. I'm going to ask you some, basic questions, and we're going to find out what's happening on April 1st. It's no April Fool's Day joke, right?
No. If we miss it, we're going to be a fool.
No, listen, you'd be a fool to miss what's going to happen on April 1st.
That's right.
Before you became the noise lady, you mentioned, taking this course on Esri during the pandemic. And we're talking about this pandemic. It was only like 5 years ago, okay? So this is in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. But who was Ingrid Buday before No More Noise Toronto?
She's been a million different things.
Who are you, Ingrid? And what are you doing in my basement?
Well, I'm here having fun, man, and that's one thing that Ingrid has always been. Ingrid has always been fun, and ask anybody who's known me. And I worked at Terranet for 9 years, and they are the company that manages the land registry database for the province of Ontario. And that's where I learned about Esri. And I would come I would ride my bike. along Lakeshore at Front in York, and I would come in and and every Friday I'd be like, "Happy Friday," and then I would go into the washroom and I would have my bike clothes on, but my high-heeled shoes, because corporately, you wear high-heeled shoes.
My kind of woman.
Yeah, and so then I went through this transformation every morning, and it was just so much fun because I got to ride my bike to work, and I got to work for a really cool company that did really cool mapping things.
Okay. And please, when did you first come to this realization that Toronto might be... Well, is Toronto too noisy?
Overall, so it's a noisy city, yes.
Yeah.
But then we talk about unnecessary noise, and I think there's way too much unnecessary noise in Toronto and actually elsewhere. So when we talk about different noise sources, because everybody has a noise story and we all have an individual relationship to sound, and so that's been an interesting thing to kind of unpack a bit.
So when did you have this epiphany, like, hey, there's too much unnecessary noise in this city?
When I started looking out my window and swearing at people that were racing by my condo, waking me up at 3:00 in the morning. And I tried to report it to 311, and I tried to report it to the police, and nothing worked. And I started a new job 2 weeks before the pandemic started. So I did most of it at home. And it was great because I could, kind of drag my butt to the kitchen table after being kept awake because of racing vehicles and loud exhausts and all that stuff. And then when they wanted me to go back into the office, I'm like, there's no way I can actually go back into the office. So that's when the epiphany happened, when it was just like, this is too much. And I wondered, am I the only one? And at that point I was on Twitter and I was raging at 2:00 in the morning going, "Rah." And I was not the only one. I learned that there's a lot of people out there who just want to get a good night's sleep.
Now, you don't have to dox yourself, okay, Ingrid? I don't need to know the exact address here, but you're in a condo?
Yeah.
By a highway?
Yeah.
Possibly the Gardner Expressway?
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel this is really important because there are there'll be Torontonians listening will be like, what's Ingrid talking about?
Yeah.
But when you're in a condo tower by one of our, our major highways, be it the 427 or the 401 or the Don Valley Parkway or the Gardner Expressway, I think that covers all the major highways in the city here.
Yeah, the racetrack circle there, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, are you talking about like maybe, let's say at 2 a.m, some motorcyclist is going to make, I know that sound when I hear it, and I hate that sound too, because I'm a cyclist like you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing I hate more than when you're cycling along your path, and sometimes it's a car. I'm not. I think I saw an episode of Roseanne where, like, I don't know if it was the father kept his motorcycle intentionally, and I don't know enough to sound like I know what I'm talking about, but the carburetor, there was something they would do to make it sound that noise. You know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Darlene's boyfriend may have fixed it. And Dan got mad because he liked it loud. Does this ring a bell with you?
Oh, there's a whole bunch of identity that goes along with sound, and a whole bunch of identity that goes along with vehicles.
And that's the sound you're talking about, where at 2 a.m, they're whatever it is that
or then you have the Harleys.
So what is that? Is that like look at my big penis? Is that what that is?
Or maybe they don't have one and that's a replacement.
Well, yeah, that's sort of what I mean. But it's
amazing how many people land there. They land at that. It's a small dick syndrome thing,
right? And
I try not to go there because I'm trying to be a good advocate. But
right.
That's where it goes. That's where it goes. And so, it's not just so we call that vanity noise. Because that's not just a vehicle doing, it's not just going from A to B. And I mean, a vehicle can look nice, and there used to be where vehicles used to like purr. It was like and I love that. I actually worked in Detroit for 9 years. So I actually have I smelled gas fumes on Woodward Avenue. I saw the bouncy cars. I saw that stuff, and I appreciate the engineering in a vehicle, but I do not appreciate it when I have over 100 noise spikes from unnecessary noise just because somebody thinks it sounds good. It impacts my health. It impacts my sleep.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to know.
Stop.
No, don't stop. Don't stop. But now on, we are going to talk like this. Okay. I feel like this episode's a little noisy. Okay.
Well, okay. But it can be vibrant.
Well, there's nothing wrong with just calm, cool, collected like this. But the vanity noise, again, it's a good name for what you're describing.
You get it, right?
They want you to notice, right? That's the whole idea. I think of it as like, I can't remember what episode it was recently, but I've done a bunch lately, but we were talking about the cyber trucks. And I think, because it was Bruce Dobigan. He was here, he was saying, I just asked if he was going to buy one because he leans that way. And I figured Bruce is the kind of guy who's going to roll in here with a Cybertruck next time he visits. And he's like, oh, they're ugly, aren't they? And I was telling him my theory on it is that people who drive the Cybertrucks are driving them because we think they're ugly and it makes us mad. Right? And I actually think that these people you're hearing at 2 a.m. who don't need to have that racket going at 2 a.m. when they're driving down the Gardiner or speeding on the Gardiner Expressway. They want you to hear them, and they don't care if they piss you off. That's part of the that's a feature, not a bug.
Absolutely. Well, so sometimes I want to give some people the benefit of the doubt and say there's ignorance, and they go, oh, I'm a kilometer away from that like on the Don Valley is a great example because the condos are actually quite a ways away, but it amplifies through the valley. And so some people may think, oh, they can't hear me. Oh, yes, we can. And then there was a study actually out by a professor in University of Waterloo, and it was about who wants a loud car, and there was a high tendency of sadism and
sadomasochistic. Can I guess? Are they primarily? It's male, right? There's no women out there who want a loud car. More or less, I would 100% agree with you. Too.
Well, I always look, right? It's like, who's driving that thing? And it's generally males.
Yeah.
And if it's a female, I think she's driving her boyfriend's car or her partner's car, or whatever, right? Jeez. But but it is, but guys have always had a fascination with cars, and I don't have a problem with that. Go and have a fascination with cars. Just don't frickin' wake me up.
Right. Okay. When you get that spike, that sound that you're describing in your condo doing some work, and it's 2 p.m., is that different? Like, is that something you accept? Because, I'm in a big city. I'm in Toronto. Is that different than when you hear it because you're trying to sleep at 2 a.m.? Like, do you think there should be like a, sort of like how when there's a concert at the Budweiser stage,
right?
They got to wrap, I think it's 11 p.m. or something because, for neighbors and people who are trying to sleep.
Yeah, Doug Ford took that away, by the way.
Is that right?
There's now the City of Toronto noise bylaws do not apply to Ontario Place.
Because
Liberty Village is going to get pummeled.
So when did this get removed?
I want to say this was like a year and a half ago, just when the whole before the deforestation happened. But yeah, it was when they were all the Thermi stuff and all of that. So.
Shout out to Ali Weinstein, who was here last week and did a documentary on Ontario Place, which started off as a love letter to Ontario Place. Then it became a eulogy, basically.
Right.
And it's airing on awful. TVO by the end of the month. So there's a lot of ground to cover. I mean, I saw a Blue or Bike Lane sticker when I went out to get your water bottle. And I could there's a lot of ground I want to cover with you, but we'll stick to the noise at first, which is, you recognize that there are, and I took a note of what you're calling these things, unnecessary noise, the vanity noise. Mm-hmm. Is it more than just the highway, like the motorcycles and the cars on the highway? Yeah.
So a couple things that I just want to mention is I've been living in the same place for 10 years. And I used to be able to ride my bike home from Terranet, have a nap on the balcony beside the Gardiner. It was 80 decibels, but it was that consistent hum. What we're talking about is something that is plainly audibly different, and it doesn't even need to be loud, but it's plainly audibly different, and it startles you, and that's what happens. It's that startle response, and it's that have a look, who is that? And so for me, it was like this, if somebody's hurting you, you kind of want to know what it is, or, if you feel a bite on your, you want to go look and you want to get it to stop. Well, I started No More Noise Toronto to get the hurt to stop. And so where were we? I wanted to make sure that I answered because I've been in the same place for 10 years. And what happened was things have changed.
Is it just vehicles on the highway? Are there other unnecessary noise spikes that you're tracking?
Right. So what I've learned now is that we all have an individual relationship to sound. And so for some people, they can hear like two people living in the same place. One person gets driven bonkers by sirens. The other person goes, it's not a big deal. Somebody's having a worse day than I am. But the thing is, so sirens are a necessary noise, but there's options to make quieter sirens. There's ones called broadband sirens, and they're more tonal, and they can they have lower tones. They can be like a white noise. I heard one on the back of a city truck, and it was like a
But isn't the idea to let motorists know you're coming?
Yeah.
Like, aren't you afraid of this white noise siren? We'll just ignore it.
Well, so the white noise would be good for like the backup beepers and the cherry pickers and those kind of things and that backup trucks. But sirens themselves, they actually have ones that are now, they're used in Hawaii. They're called the rumblers, and they use low frequency vibration. And the thing is when you're in downtown and you hear an ambulance, do you have any idea where it comes from? You know, it's like, okay, is that 2 blocks south, 2 blocks north? What is it? So that's where I think there's opportunity for better technology. If Waze can, and Google Maps can kind of show you which lane you need to be in, is there not a way that the GPS of an ambulance can be notified and cars can be, like, it can show up on a map? Like the thing is with No More Noise Toronto, we know it's not going to be quiet tomorrow, but we can start working towards a quiet tomorrow by utilizing technology and being smart and looking at noise differently, listening to it differently.
Okay, so I'm collecting in my mind this list. So obviously the vehicular noise.
Yeah.
We'll call it that. You can use that if you want in your literature. So vehicular emergency vehicles.
Amplified sound.
Is there anything else?
Oh yeah, so construction, big one.
Sure.
Big one.
Of course, the jackhammer.
Yeah, neighbor to neighbor noise. Like so, and also, so what has happened is music has changed, and so for the record, I love to dance. I love to have a good time. And
prove it. There's some space over there, Ingrid. Don't hit your head though. Don't hit your head. Always close. Okay, Ingrid's dancing. Okay, now I know. You'll do whatever I say. This is good to know. Good to know. Okay. Did you hit your head? No. Okay.
I'm back now. No, I didn't hit my head, but I danced.
Okay, so music's different now. What? We like that bass, right? You're talking about the bass.
That deep bass. Hold on. I need to get my...
Oh, yeah. You know why? Because there's a carpet there. Just
there we go. Okay. No, it's the deep bass. And so this is where that and it travels. So there's dBA. Okay, I'm going to need a little technical here.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. dBA is the decibel weighting that everybody hears all the time, and it's attuned to what people can hear.
Okay.
And so the lower frequencies we don't hear as well as the higher frequencies. So if you look at a chart in dBA, it kind of really drops off on the lower frequency scale. dBc doesn't drop off as much because we feel more than we hear those lower frequencies. So that's why, like, I went to a concert. I got a little fun story here.
Yeah.
So I like ambient music, and there's an artist, his name is Ash, and it's kind of Middle Eastern kind of music, but he's got really, and he plays he also plays the instruments. And so I was going to the Danforth Music Hall to see him.
Sure.
And I was a little bit early, and I went next door to Noonan's.
Yeah.
And I went to have a little drink and just kind of, enjoy myself. And I saw this guy tuning the guitars, and I'm like, I think I know that person. So I went up there, and I went, hey, Mike. And he was like, Ingrid? I'm like, yeah, No More Noise. He goes, what are you doing here? It was Mike Tanner, who is part of the city's music department. I'm sorry, Mike, I'm not doing you justice here. But he was like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm going to a concert next door. And he was like, well, you should come back and dance. And so I came back after the concert, which was great, and I danced. But in the concert, the bass was so loud. It was like way down low. Right. And my heart was beating and racing. And it was like, oh, this is what people are feeling. Oh, and it feels good. But then when the song ended, I was like, oh, that was a workout. I was exhausted. And so that's where music has changed.
But it feels good.
It feels good. But the thing is that it should stay within the walls that it's created in. So that the neighbors...
Even if we're talking, like, let's say there was some kind of a curfew or something, and like you're talking about even at 10 p.m., you think it should, stay within the walls.
Well, yeah, ideally, because if it stays between the walls at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m., that means it's going to stay between the walls at 2 a.m. And we're going to a 24/7 economy, right? Like that's what the whole night economy is about. The night economy is defined as anything past 6 p.m. and before 6 a.m.
Let me ask you because I'm very interested in what the World Health Organization has to say about these noise spikes and stuff. Because I've done a little homework because you were on the Esri podcast, so I have a little insight into this. But I'm going to hit you with some obvious things because I can hear listeners hearing this, and they're going to be yelling at the smartphone or whatnot and say, Ingrid, you chose to live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Mm-hmm. The largest city in the country and one of the larger cities in the world, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Mm-hmm. A lot of the noise that you're experiencing and wanting to reduce is what comes with living in a big city. Like, what do you say to those folks who say you should live in like Moncton or something?
Well, what if I can't? What if I have a family that's here? What if I have kids that are here? What if my job is here? You know, I should be able to live wherever I need to and have a good sleep. It's not about, it is about noise, but it's also about our health and about having a good sleep. Because if we don't have good sleep, all of us know how crappy we feel the next day. And some people have this all the time. So they're constantly sleep deprived. And finally, I've lived in my condo for 10 years. For 8 until 2019, it was great. I loved it. I could sleep with the window open, even with the gardener. But what happened in 2019 was Doug Ford took away Drive Clean. So there is no visual inspection of a vehicle.
So okay, this is interesting. Yes, I know Drive Clean when I remember I had an 86 Taurus, and I remember the headaches I was going through to try to get that thing passed.
Me too. I had a Subaru.
Trying to get,
Bikes are way easier, man. Way easier.
You're preaching to the converted on that one, Ingrid. We can do 90 minutes on that. But so you're saying now cars, because they don't have to pass any kind of inspection, that they're simply not roadworthy and therefore noisier?
Well, apparently when you modify a vehicle, it is not up to OEM, original equipment manufacturer specs. So that could potentially void insurance. That could potentially cause problems if you get into a crash. But the idea is that vehicles are safe for not only external people, like that they have brakes and all that, but also the people inside. And so if it's really loud, then that's impacting both the driver and everybody around. And so then it could be looked at as being unsafe. And so one of the things that's really cool that's happening with this community is there is a person in BC actually who created an app where you can anonymously report loud vehicles. And so we're working on that right now to make that into something that can go on the phone where you can take a picture, a license plate, it uploads it, and then let's say the Ministry of Ontario could look at it, and when they want to register your vehicle, instead of just sending out the tickets, they actually do a quick scan and see if your vehicle has been reported as modified.
Interesting. Okay, so as we build our way towards April 1st, 2025, okay, and I mentioned the World Health Organization.
Yes.
You know, they state noise pollution is second to the number one urban environmental health hazard, which is air pollution.
Right.
Did I get that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me, Ingrid, you're the expert here. By the way, do you have a theme song? Buday is the greatest noise watcher I know. I'm going to workshop the
You need to work that a little bit more.
I got that first break. Buday is the greatest. Okay, please.
I don't like that Buday is the greatest thing, but
No?
you know.
Okay, we're going to workshop it.
Yeah.
What the heck is the World Health Organization saying about nighttime noise limits?
Yeah, well, nighttime is basically considered from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And they recommend 40 decibels at night for a restorative sleep. I've seen other numbers. I've seen as low as 30. There's a number of different publications out there, but they are recommending 40 at night and 55 during the day, because it is the documentation and the research is well done, well researched now, that 55 decibels is when the health impacts occur. And that's not being annoyed. That is actually just your body responding to sound. That is,
you don't have any frame of reference markers. Like if I said, hey, I went to Pearson and I heard a jumbo jet take off, like, oh, that's 100 or something.
That'd be about like 110. Okay. You know, a diesel engine is about 80 to 90. Cars are usually around 70 to 80, depending on. And cars just create noise outside of the exhaust, because it's tire noise, it's wind noise, it's all that other stuff.
Right.
But they're also now putting speakers on the outside of electric vehicles. So don't think that electric vehicles are going to be the solution. Dodge's EV is touted to have 126 decibels coming out of it from speakers.
Why so high?
Because it's Dodge. I think they have small penises.
Okay, well, hey, you heard it from Ingrid here. Okay, so they're recommending, I heard you correctly, that they want 40 dBA
at night.
At nighttime, which is like 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Yep.
Outside, and then 30 dBA inside, and that would help you get like a nice restful, restorative sleep.
Yeah. And the thing, I mean, we all know that sometimes we sleep better and sometimes we don't. And it's like, well, and I am lucky enough to get out of the city on a regular basis. And I don't sleep well here. I sleep maybe 5-6 hours, and even during the day. So you were asking me about at 2 p.m. How do I feel about that?
Right.
Well, I feel just as annoyed at 2 p.m. as I do at 2 a.m. because they've distracted me from my work. They've distracted me from whatever I'm doing, and it is 100% unnecessary. And so that's where it bothers me day and night, and I feel the response within my body, and I can tell when I've been in town too long. My partner, he goes, Ingrid, you're starting to get brittle. You need to leave.
Okay, brittle Ingrid. Now, I'm going to read something. I pulled this from your site, okay, and I'm going to read it verbatim because it really speaks to this, the health damage that could be caused by all this. But this is what it says. It says, I'll use my reporter voice. I don't have one. Okay. According to Toronto Public Health's 2017 report, How Loud is Too Loud? Over 60% of Toronto residents live in areas that are always above 55 decibels at all hours. At 55 decibels, which is around the level of normal conversation, negative impacts from noise start to occur in our minds and our bodies. I need my mind and my body. Okay. Mm-hmm. Stress hormones can be released, which can lead to thickening of the arteries, which can lead to strokes and heart attacks. You're scaring me, Ingrid. Mm-hmm. Sudden noise spikes, even if not loud, cause our bodies to instinctively respond with the fight or flight response. I can speak to that in a moment. This reduces our ability to fall asleep, concentrate on the task at hand. Concentrate on the task at hand. Often, for those who are repeatedly impacted, it creates anger at something they have no control over. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, I mean, you're not a doctor here, but strokes and heart attacks, that sounds like it's bad for you.
Yeah, it is. And I have a history of stroke in my family. So every time those guys go by and I hear them, they wake me up. They are literally taking days off my life. And so sound is the first sense that is developed. We hear in the womb. We hear our mother's heartbeat. Mm-hmm. And then it's the last sound we lose. If you've ever lost a loved one, they may say, I mean, it happened with me when my mom passed away, and they're like, she's going to go in a couple of hours. She's not coherent anymore. And they said, do you want to say goodbye? I'm like, well, what's the point? And they said, no, they listen, they can hear, And so that is how important our hearing and how wired our hearing is. And there's a great article that came out yesterday from the BBC, and they were actually talking about how sound goes through an area of our ear that then is related to emotion. And this is something that I didn't realize. I was so angry, Mike, and I'm not an angry person. I want to have fun.
You were just dancing.
I know, right?
And you're a cyclist, which means you're a sweetheart. We all cyclists are sweethearts.
Yeah. But so I was so angry, and I was just like, how do I get over this? Is this only me? And now when I've been to 70 different locations in Toronto where I've done measurements with my sound level meters because I wanted data to verify what I was living through, because I don't live in an average. I live, in noise spikes.
Right.
And people were like, Ingrid, I get so angry. And it's like they disclose this deep, dark secret, and they talk about, wanting to throw rocks and frozen eggs and slingshots and all kinds of stuff, but they want the pain to stop.
This is how I feel when I see a Cybertruck. So I can totally relate to this. And the fight or flight response, this speaks exactly to what you're referring to, I think, which is this past weekend, my youngest turned 9 years old. Mm-hmm. Her birthday was Saturday.
Nice.
And therefore there were balloons around. And I was just calmly, I wasn't thinking about balloons. Okay, I guess if I'm prepared for something, I was completely just focusing on something on my laptop and working something. And then she accidentally popped a balloon, like, I don't know, a foot or two away from my ear.
Oh, yeah.
And I can tell you, right, basically you mentioned fight or flight. I went to full fight mode, like, okay. I don't know what, it's some instinctive thing, but it's like that noise out of nowhere, that loud noise. I was ready to just run through a wall, and it was just in my heart. I could feel my heart beating really hard and fast.
Yeah.
Like you
have no control over that response. That's automatic.
No, I had no control over it. And it was like, I remember and I felt angry at first, and like, I knew it wasn't the 9-year-old's fault or anything, but I was angry that I was now in this fight response over a balloon or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that might speak to, what's happening when it's 2 a.m. and you hear that, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what they do is they go by my window, or like they go by the building. And so it goes from whatever it is inside my place. I mean, and so you look at these condos that they're building now, they're squirrel cages. They're glass squirrel cages. You literally have, I mean, people say, oh, can you move your bed to the quiet side of the house? I only have one side of the house.
Well, do they say, hey, Ingrid, put on a pair of earplugs?
Yeah. And I do when I need to, but I get soggy ears in the morning, and I
hate soggy ears.
I hate soggy ears. And why should I have to have soggy ears because of somebody else? Because what they do is literally like they just go by the building, and then it's all of a sudden it's like, right? And I'm not going to do that to your listeners because I would love to, but I wouldn't. But that's just the thing. And so at night, whether it's at night, you might actually not even wake up, but our body wakes up. Our body responds. And that's the thing, that parasympathetic response that we have no control over. And so we've been talking about vehicle noise, but imagine if it's construction all day, banging, grinding. Like Liberty Village has been pummeled by noise between the Gardner and the Ontario Line construction at Exhibition, and then the events that they have there.
Can you do construction quieter?
Well, so a lot of the pneumatic, like a lot of the powered equipment is sometimes 2-stroke engines, so that can be done with electric. But also, people were talking about it, and they're like, well, what if they just used, instead of doing steel on steel, doing a very hard rubber hammer? Or there's somebody else in a meeting. I have so many meetups where I hear from people, and they were talking about the wood forms when they pour concrete, and then they take those forms off and they bang them off. Well, maybe there's a quieter way to bang them off. The other thing is that in a lot of construction contracts, they talk about noise monitoring. They don't always talk about noise mitigation. And Councillor Paula Fletcher, her newsletter is really long with all the metro links and stuff that's happening in her area. And sometimes they say noise mitigation is in place, and sometimes they don't, so noise mitigation is possible, and it should be a part of every contract. But the thing is, they're like, oh, well, that's going to cost more money. But you know what? Not having our health costs us money. It burdens the healthcare system, and it makes our day suck. And then we're at work. Are we really working? Are we really productive? Are we really happy? No, none of that.
And as the Who, not the band, by the way, as the Who says, okay, this is number 2 after air pollution. So it's easier to solve the noise pollution situation than it is to solve the air pollution situation.
I think so.
Okay, geez, you're making a lot of sense. And when I was talking to some people about this episode, a lot of people are like, maybe, and you spoke to this earlier, but does she know she's living in Toronto? Like when she bought that condo, did she know there was a gardener next door?
Yeah, and it wasn't a problem. Wasn't a problem at all.
Wasn't a problem. Okay.
Nope.
And that's one more thing. Hold on, I got to take a note. One more thing I can blame Doug Ford for, because I got a lengthy list to myself of things I can blame Doug Ford for here. And you spoke to some of the actual, like having a bad sleep can cause some very serious medical problems. Nobody wants a stroke. I spent a night in a stroke ward. I didn't have a stroke, but I was in danger of having a stroke, and I spent a night in a stroke ward. You don't want to be in that stroke ward. Okay, at St. Joe's there in Parkdale. You don't want to be there. Okay, I escaped after one night. They wanted me there for much longer, and I had to get out of there. Yeah. I didn't want to be there, but luckily I did not have a stroke. So we're going to talk about what's happening on April 1st. Okay. But before we get there, I know I'm building up a long story here to get you to April 1st. But you, because I know everything about you, Ingrid, and I'm going to get a better song than Buday is the greatest. Okay. Could you speak to the Not 311 noise report? Like, because we did. I want to see if we tied this all together, because we talked about Esri.
Yeah.
And this Esri is helping you to process this data. But where is the data coming from? You said something a few minutes ago, like you were going to all these locations with like a noise reader or something. And so maybe some specifics on how you're collecting all this Not 311 noise report data.
Yeah, well, I'm going to put a little flag out here is that the data, the website is under a work in progress. And I'm going to have
say under construction, but it's too loud. So we can't say under construction for this episode.
It's a work in progress. Okay. And that usually happens after 11 o'clock at night. And so I'm going to have some really good, I use Story Maps, which is an Esri product. Yeah. All of my website is basically, it's a WordPress site, and now I'm layering in story maps. And so we use both crowdsourced and data with that I collect with meters. So when I saw the Toronto Public Health report, how loud is too loud, it was a 24-hour average. I'm like, that's bullshit. I don't live with a 24-hour average. So I bought a sound level meter,
Right.
and I was able to count the
Where do you
noise
buy that?
spikes.
Like at the source? Where are you going to buy this sound level meter?
The first one I bought actually through Cirrus. They're a proper noise. Well, they both are. So one is from the UK, and it was a really expensive meter because I didn't quite know what I was getting. But it's the Cadillac version, and I still don't know exactly everything to do with it. But I'm going to learn. The other ones are actually Canadian made.
Good
from
for
a
you.
company called Convergence Instruments, and they're based in Quebec. Oh, sorry, I just did something.
Okay. By the way, the Palma Pasta box is here because I'm going to give you a Palma Pasta lasagna that's in my freezer right now.
No way.
And you can enjoy that. They
John
make delicious
loves
Italian food.
lasagna.
Okay, so John is this significant other here. Does he think Toronto's too noisy?
Yeah. Well, what he doesn't like is what Toronto does to,
You know what he told me? He told me, I don't like how noisy Ingrid gets when Toronto is
She
too noisy.
uses a lot of swear words.
It's not the vanity noise that bothers me. It's how angry it makes Ingrid.
yeah,
So I am
no.
giving you a lasagna here. And then I'm
Awesome.
also going to give you some fresh craft beer. You
And-
mentioned made in Canada. This is made in South
Yeah.
Etobicoke, okay?
Fabulous.
And
Yeah,
Ridley Funeral Home, and hopefully those strokes and those artery thickenings and all these terrible things that happens because of the noise taking away our good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Ridley Funeral Home at 4th and Lakeshore, they've sent over a measuring tape. for you,
Hey,
Ingrid.
every girl needs a measuring tape, and
You
that's the
measure
kind
what you wish.
There we go. Well, is it
Well,
really
you're already
6
measuring.
inches?
Oh, Ingrid, working blue here. Oh my goodness. I was going to make a very wholesome joke about how you're measuring the decibels,
Yeah.
and you went straight to a penis joke.
Well, it goes along with vehicles.
Okay.
But anyway, so not 311 noise report. So this was where I tried to report moving vehicle noise to the city. They don't do anything with moving vehicles. It's Toronto Police. So then I tried to call the police. Well, they wanted a license plate. They wanted a picture of the vehicle. They wanted a description. I'm like, it's 3:30 in the morning. I don't have any of that. This is bullshit.
Also, that car is now 100.
Yeah,
100K down the road.
it just doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, so how am I going to show that this doesn't work? So I created what was called the Not 311 Noise Report. And it started off with just moving vehicles. And then it went to a whole bunch of other things because people wanted waste collection. They wanted pickleballs. They wanted sirens. They wanted horns. They wanted all this. So
Did you say pickleball?
yeah.
Is that noisy?
Yeah.
Really?
And it's like a,
Okay. Today I learned. Okay, please continue.
okay. So I started the Not 311 Noise Report to get attention and to make a point that the city had an incomplete data set because at that point they weren't taking moving vehicle reports. They also weren't taking leaf blower reports that
They
were
do suck. Leaf blowers suck.
yeah, well they
But
blow
they blow and suck at the same time.
they're very special. And so multi-talented. So so I was like, well, you need to take leaf blower reports at all times because how are you going to know if something is getting worse or getting better? Like with your changes in implement, because they're supposed to be banning leaf blowers, right? So this was all about data and making a point that the city didn't have a full data set. So the good news is that now we can report moving vehicles to the city. It just becomes a data point, but at least you can do it now. There's a place that they have a drop-down menu, but it's still Toronto Police Services that does moving vehicles.
So what is your hope? Like when somebody, I'm picking on the motorcyclist because I know Joe Louis is listening. So this is a shout out to Joe Louis.
Hey,
But
Joe.
When the motorcyclists are going
I like
by
you,
the
Joe.
condo on the Gardner, and they're making that noise that wakes you up. And by the way, one more thing. So when the balloon popped, okay, it wasn't nighttime, but when the balloon popped and the heart starts going, if in the middle of the night you get something that wakes you up like that, you can't just fall asleep.
No.
You know what it's
and
like when you hear
especially if
something,
get
you go up,
angry.
you look out the window, and now
Yeah.
you got this like heightened anxiety, which you need
Oh,
to calm
yeah.
down and go back to bed. You're up for a while.
Yeah. And then sometimes what I like to do is in order to relax is I take a shower and then in my condo, the Harleys join me in the shower. So
I saw a photo of you in the bathroom with your earphones on. Now that explains, because it's a strange photo till you get this backstory here. You can hear the Harleys.
Yeah, I hear them everywhere. I do not have a single place in my home where I do not hear moving motor vehicle noise. None.
Okay.
So,
Jeez.
anyways, so yeah,
what is
anger-
it? So what
anger-
is it that you want the
Yeah.
police to do when you hear that motorcyclist at 2 a.m?
Actually, what I've learned is I don't want them to do anything because I want automated enforcement. I had three different meetings with Toronto Police Services, and they described to me the process that it is to enforce this Highway Traffic Act 75.1. You shall not modify your muffler, basically. And it's broken. The whole process is broken. And so either because they're not going to chase a moving vehicle. I don't want them to do that.
No, they're not.
Not for
that.
No. And so that's where now in New York City, they actually have noise cameras and that they are actively targeting, identifying, targeting, and ticketing moving vehicles. And I had that company into Toronto City Hall on December 9th. And so I am bringing solutions to City Hall because that's the thing with noise. People don't know that, it's always noisy. Cities are noisy. That's a bunch of bullshit. We can do better. We can do better.
Because that's what I was hit with. And it is kind of a easy, lazy way out.
It's a lazy way out,
well,
yeah.
You live in a big city.
Yeah.
There's noise in a big city. Deal with it, Ingrid.
Yeah, no.
But you're saying we don't have to accept and tolerate this. We don't have to move away to find a good night's sleep.
And finally, if you move away, so we can hear vehicle noise. The one vehicle that really started all of this off was during the pandemic when it was nice and quiet, and it was one motorcycle. And I heard it and I thought, I'm going to time you, you bastard. So I timed it on my watch.
I think this was Joe Louis. Keep going.
And it was 10 minutes. And I knew from where I live approximately how far away that was. And that was about 7K. And so that was one drop in our soundscape at that time. And so the thing that's changed with noise is there's more modifieds. We know there's now more vehicles than there was at that period of time. Right. And it's also hitting the wealthier people. Typically, noise is an equity issue because it's loud arterials and it's people that don't have air conditioning, let's say, in their homes and they have to open their windows and all this other stuff.
Good point.
And you want to talk about people that are blind, how they need to navigate the city. They use their ears. And I have a friend who's blind and she says, if I'm beside a trucker by a construction site, she has no clue what is around her. Right. So it's an equity thing as well. And that's where it's affecting rich, poor, everybody now. And I think that's the big difference. That's why we've got so much support, is because everybody's impacted. You can live in a $10 million home, but if your neighbors are blasting amplified music every single day and you can't enjoy your home, then you try and talk with them and they're a bunch of jerks, what do you do?
Well, it depends on the music, right?
Well, it does, but
No, I hear you. Yeah. You are making great points here. So what's so special about April 1st, 2025? What is happening on that date?
Yeah. So I've been learning the civic engagement process, and that's where change happens. And change happens by showing up over and over and over again. So in January of 2024, we had the noise bylaw review. The city did public consultations in the fall, all this stuff. I started to get No More Noise going. We got a name, we got a logo, everything is good. And on January 6th, I think it was the noise bylaw review day. And we had 40 people make deputations. They spoke to city council about how noise impacts their health. They didn't speak to city council, sorry. They spoke to the Economic and Community Development Committee.
Okay.
And Chair Bravo said, there's a noise action plan that Toronto Public Health put out. We should revisit that. And they did that before the pandemic in 2019.
Okay.
So this is that meeting where Toronto Public Health is going to report back on their 2019 noise action plan. And the noise action plan was basically a bunch of requests to different city departments because Toronto Public Health has zero authority when it comes to noise.
Okay, very exciting. So what's happening again? The Board of Health meeting. This is the Board of Health meeting?
That is correct.
Okay, and they're going to, the Toronto Public Health is going to report to the Toronto Board of Health on this noise action plan from 2019, which has been delayed because we had to deal with this pandemic and many things were delayed.
It was put on mute.
Mute, which would you like, right? You're pro-mute. That's something you'd be okay with.
Yeah.
The harmful noise levels in Toronto, they're both underreported and they're ignored, say you, Ingrid Buday.
Yeah, they are, because they're not, you can't report all noises. And when it comes down to the actual enforcement process, people feel ignored. 311 is the intake process, which is then complicated how it goes to municipal licensing and standards. And I'm really lucky to have a good relationship with municipal licensing and standards. And noise is 10% of their job.
Okay, I'm going to ask you in moments, I'm going to ask you what the heck you want. What do you want? Because you've convinced me, like, what do you want, Ingrid? And we're going to give it to you here. I have friends in high places. Okay, you've come to the right place. Okay, we're going to find out what you want. But I got to give you kudos here because sometimes I waffle like between when you decide to live in Toronto, you kind of sign and this is me speaking for myself, you sign a social contract that it's going to be noisy. Like this is something I think, it's like whenever I hear someone complain about noise, I'm like, it's a big city, like that's a big city problem. And then I kind of brush it off or whatever. But you make some compelling arguments and you're making some good points. We don't have to settle for this. Our health is at risk because of this vanity noise, this unnecessary noise. And I think what you've done with No More Noise Toronto, like you built this thing. This is like a grassroots organization that you founded, and I'm impressed by you.
Thank you.
Kudos to you, Ingrid Buday.
You know what? I was so angry, and I thought I've got skills. I've got, I don't mind being a ham. I don't mind talking to people.
You got Esri.
And I got Esri. Yeah, well, I didn't have Esri initially, but I knew that I wanted to connect with universities. So I've now worked with 5 University of Toronto students, one Toronto Metropolitan University, where Dr. Tor Oyamo is, and he is one of the best and well-known researchers on health experts on noise, specifically traffic noise. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to use the Cadillac, and I'm going to see what I can do. And because of those relationships, and now Esri is also a huge supporter, and we actually have a meeting with them tomorrow.
And your points about it being an equity issue really strike home with me, that it's the those in the lowest income bracket that live in louder areas.
And the people, like anybody who's neurodivergent, right? Like that's where anybody on the autism spectrum, or even, so this is also, sleep is so important to our health. And this is where, if you have an injury, if you're recovering, there was somebody who had a deputation about noise, and it was about leaf blowers, and she was recovering from a concussion. And she said the leaf blower noise just made her cry, just sob, and so, and we have no protection. We have no protection.
And as you wrote on nomorenoisetoronto.com, noise is the new secondhand smoke. That's what you wrote. You wrote that.
Yeah. And like that's one analogy of it. I mean, because it's, we would never think about going to a restaurant and sharing a table with somebody next door that, having a smoking section. And so back to, your comment about social contract. So you live in a city and you think it's loud, and that's part of the social contract. There's also a social contract of consideration. And that is what is lacking, that people think that their noise is okay. And, and the standard, like I've had people that when they've got neighbor to neighbor noise and it's coming over the back fence and it's the bass beats and it's been going on for 5 or 6 hours, and can we just tone it down? And they say, oh, fuck off. This is my right. I can do whatever I want.
Especially during the day.
Yeah. Like people want to enjoy their backyards. They want to enjoy their homes. And if they can't enjoy their homes, or where they're supposed to relax.
Well, they'll call you a buzzkill, right?
Killjoy. I've been called.
Shout out to the Killjoys.
I've been called that a number of times, and if they'll
stop inviting you to parties.
Well, if they did, they'd know that I like to dance.
Well, I saw that. I hope the camera caught it. Are you kidding me? I saw you dance there. Okay.
So April 1st is really important, because if we don't speak up, that's when, so with the civic engagement process, one thing leads to another. So that meeting in January of 2024 led to April 1st. And what we're looking for is some motions and some...
So go slowly here. I need to drink this in. What exactly are you looking for, Ingrid Buday? What do you want?
Can you hit pause on that part?
There's no pause on Toronto Mic'd here.
Oh, shit.
Don't worry. What are you? You're looking something up. That's okay. Like, you don't have to have it memorized, but okay. I can give play. But you want to look it up? I'll thank a sponsor real quick while you look it up here. Don't worry. Okay. So everybody should know the newest sponsor of Toronto Mic'd is Nick Iones from Fusion Corp. He's got a podcast called Building Toronto Skyline. I bet you the construction on some of these condo developments Nick's responsible for, I bet you it's freaking loud. So I hope Nick listens to this, and maybe he can find a quieter way. You mentioned electric, etc. Maybe there's a quieter way to build these condos. Thank you, Nick Iones, for stepping up. Building Toronto Skyline is the podcast. And last but not least, if you have old electronics, old cables, old devices, don't throw them in the garbage because the chemicals will end up in your landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, put in your postal code, and find a place near you. You could drop it all off to be properly recycled. So when those noise meters break, Ingrid, you don't chuck it in the garbage. Okay,
No.
not down that garbage chute in the condo. You go to recyclemyelectronics.ca. Do you have the specifics here in front of you, Ingrid? I
Yes,
can't believe you
I
just
do.
said, did I hear you say pause earlier? Did you think this was geographical thinking? They might pause on geographical thinking, but I do not have a pause button. I removed
there you
it.
Go. That is good. That is good. Well, the reason why I asked for pause is because literally I've been clarifying them over the last 24 hours, and it's now just up on my website. So
Okay, I'm
I've
ready.
got new tiles here. So So what do we want? So the first thing is we want the Toronto Board of Health to direct Toronto Public Health to expand their definition of the health impacts of noise in line with international guidelines from the World Health Organization.
Who?
The WHO.
That's a joke. So yeah, who? And then you
The
go, who? And then
The
say who?
who.
It's like, who's on first? Okay, what's
Who's
on
on base?
second? I don't know who's on third.
I don't know. So what that means is that I actually was lucky enough to be invited to be part of Councillor Moyes, who's also the chair of the Board of Health, on his recent noise town hall. And Toronto Public Health had a slide where they were just saying the cardiovascular impacts of noise are much less than smoking, drinking, eating. And they mentioned one other thing that I can't remember right now. And I'm like, no, it's not just the cardiovascular impacts. It's the sleep deprivation. It's the anxiety, increase in anxiety and depression. It's the frustration. It's all
And you
of
mentioned
these other things.
neurodivergent people.
And
Absolutely.
it's the equity piece. Absolutely. So that's number
Okay.
one. So we want them to look beyond just cardiovascular
Okay.
impacts.
Okay. That's number one.
Number one. Number two, to create policies to address the harmful effects of noise pollution on the Toronto public. The Toronto Board of Health must ask the province to include harmful sound in the Healthy Environments and Climate Change Guideline 2018 in Requirement 7. So to unpack that, I had a meeting. I am so lucky to have meetings with Toronto Public Health as well.
What are they, when you say, hey, can we meet? Are they like, oh, it's Ingrid again. She's going to be honest about the
No,
noise.
because I'm fun.
Do you bring them like donuts or something?
No, but I say
Cupcakes?
thank you.
Okay,
I say
good.
thank you a lot.
That's very Canadian of me.
So the thing is I had a meeting with Toronto Public Health and they brought up this document, Healthy
Right.
Environments and Climate Change Guideline 2018, and they showed me Requirement 7 and they said, Ingrid, unless noise is listed here, we can't do anything about it.
So you want that to be listed there?
I want that to be listed there.
Ingrid, if you're having trouble sleeping because of this damn spikes and this unnecessary noise and the vanity noise, you should just read Healthy Environments and Climate Change Guideline 2018. It'll put you right to sleep.
Either that or it'll make me angry. So I searched the document, Control F for noise, nothing. Sound, nothing. So many documents. So the only place that I really saw noise and sound was when they had documents relating to the environment. When it comes to relating to people, noise and sound is not mentioned.
Okay, so now we got a couple of things you want. You want to expand that definition that the Toronto Public Health has
Yeah.
about the health impacts of noise to make it equal to what WHO has, the World Health
WHO?
Organization, WHO. And you're going to, you want to create policies to address the harmful effects of noise pollution on the Toronto public. To do that, you want the Toronto Board of Health to ask the province to include harmful sound in the Healthy Environments and Climate Change Guideline 2018 in Requirement 7, to be very, very specific
Yep.
here. Okay.
Yep. And then we got one more.
Okay. Last but not least, I wish I had a
Last but
drum
not-
roll for you.
To reduce the increasing noise levels in the city, the Toronto Board of Health must coordinate with other city divisions, such as Toronto Police Services, to effectively address this issue. Less talk and more action. So an example of that is when I go to report moving vehicle noise to 311,
Right.
they will actually have it as a little drop-down menu. And I'm like, so does that data then go to Toronto Police Services? And they're like, we don't know. And then when I talk to Toronto Police Services, I'm like, well, so do you get data from 311? And they're like, we don't think so. So that's the thing, is this is the broken process, is noise goes across housing, police, health, equity, accessibility. It's across. So we just need to coordinate all of that.
And it sounds like, to summarize this in a nutshell, is make it a priority, because right now it's
Right.
not.
It's not. It's not
Like,
even
they're
on
not
the radar.
No. And with, I'm guessing that they're like, we can't police this because this modified muffler. You mentioned Doug Ford got rid of the what was it called again?
Drive Clean.
Drive Clean. I was like, for years I had to deal with this thing. Okay, and then when I got rid of my car, it disappeared. It was
I know.
all like, oh,
Me
now I
too.
just ride a bike, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's pretty clean, that bike. Okay, well,
It
it depends
is.
who you
I
ask.
saw it.
Depends who you ask. But the fact is that it's not a priority. They, if you did hear that sound at 2 a.m, where does it go to? What to happen?
What do we
There's
do?
Yeah, what do you do?
Who protects Toronto? So noise was studied in the on the workplace, right? For employers to protect their to reduce their liability, right? So it was all about hearing loss and 85 decibels and exposure over a certain amount of time. That's where noise has been studied. It is not, or regulated, I should say. It has not been regulated in the public environment. And that's the thing is who protects the public? We know who protects the worker. We do not know who protects the public.
So you'll be at these meetings on the April 1st?
With bells on.
That's loud. Okay. Have you considered the noise you'll make with these bells? Okay. Maybe you just
Actually,
maybe a low hum or something.
Yeah, well, we're actually not even allowed. It's right on the screen when you go in that you cannot bring noise making equipment into City Hall.
Are you allowed to record?
It's recorded. It's streamed live on YouTube. So the city has a YouTube channel, and so on April 1st at 9:30 in the morning is when the Board of Health meeting starts.
Because I'm now like invested. Like I now
Ooh, you're gonna
because of this
watch.
visit. I now care, and I can tell you from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. is, and I mean, I need to talk to you after this to find out if you're happy or not.
That would be awesome. So leading up to April 1st, we're going to have an email campaign. And so I actually got ads on Zoomer Radio to direct people to the website. And then we're going to get people to send emails. And
You bought ads on Zoomer Radio.
I did.
Moses Neimer owns Zoomer Radio.
Yeah.
And I had the morning show guy over last week.
Did you?
Andy Wilson is his name, and he's also the program director at Zoomer
Hey,
Radio.
wow. Chirp,
Look at
chirp.
that.
Here
You
we
never
are.
know who's dropping by here. Okay, so
So yeah, so we've got lots of stuff going on, and we're going to have an email campaign, and we're going to have emails for different noise sources, because I've learned, if sirens are your thing, I didn't have a working group meeting for sirens in the last month and a half because I had 22 other meetings, and they're like, where are sirens? So okay, we're gonna do one for sirens in April, just so you know, just so everybody's happy. But there's going to be different emails for different noise sources, and I can make an email list that includes the Ministry of Transportation. I can include all kinds of things. So we're going to make some noise in people's inboxes.
okay, that's the kind of noise we're in favor of. Okay, so this is all happening. Again, it's been awesome to get you on. I know how I want to close this, so thank you so much for dropping by, and I love the fact you biked here.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when we wrap, I got to go on a little bike ride myself. So it's
There
good to
we
see a
go.
fellow. And also again, the day this drops is not the day it was recorded, although near similar, close enough. But this particular day, because I feel like when you're listening to this, you'll be like, oh, Mike, it's 15 degrees outside. But the day we're recording is not a warm day. It's around 0 or something. I don't know. It's a kind of a cold day.
1 or 2 degrees. Yeah.
Right. So when I see a cyclist out in 1 or 2 degrees, I'm like, I'm nod, and I give you that approving nod. Like, I like the cut of your jib, is what I'm telling you here.
There you go.
So on our way out, there is a documentary commissioned by Hot Docs. In this documentary, which I have seen, I watched it for the Esri recording we did a couple years back. It's called Do You Hear What I Hear?
Yeah.
And you're featured in this documentary.
So fun.
Can people watch? Like, if somebody just heard Ingrid Buday and they want to see more of you in this doc, which summarizes it all kind of perfectly, where can you see? Like, do you know where you can see Do You Hear What I Hear?
It's on Crave. And if you just search Citizen Minutes, it'll be on there. But you can also go to nomorenoisetoronto.com and see our featured media list and everything that I've been on. I was working with somebody and they were like, oh, Ingrid, you've been on a lot of media. And I'm like, great. I don't know how I rate with others, but it's right there as well. It's on featured media. Scroll down and there it is.
Will this episode of Toronto Mike be showcased on that page on nomorenoisetoronto.com?
Absolutely.
I'm honored. Have you ever been on CNN?
No.
Well, Ingrid, I have.
No.
Yeah, on Friday I was on CNN. Woo!
I think I did see that on Blue Sky.
Yeah, well, it
right?
just happened.
Yeah.
Again, recording date. It just happened. So I just wanted to
Congratulations.
do a humble brag on our way out here that I was on CNN, Ingrid. But Ingrid, I hope you're on CNN soon. You're doing important work, and thanks for sharing your story with us. This was awesome.
It is my pleasure, and thanks, Mike, for all that you do. And it's just been a
More
pleasure.
on that, Ingrid. I can make time. What more do I do?
Well, you do lots of things. I've lots of all the bands and the artists that come on, and you're a music guy.
I'm the only podcast in town that's gonna do a deep dive on Change of Heart. Right, that's what I care about. Ian Blurden and the gang dropping by.
There you go.
Praise from
awesome.
Caesar. Thank you, Ingrid. We'll work on another song for you. It won't be Buday is the greatest day, but we'll work on something. But
we'll work on something. That's awesome, Mike. I wish you and everybody else a good sleep.